Sometimes life will bring you into a space where you start to wonder, God, did you see that? Did you hear what they said about me? Did you notice what they did to me? And it's not because you doubt that God is real. It's because it hurts. It's because the pain came from people you never expected it from. It's because the ones who said they loved you, the ones you poured into, the ones you covered, were the same ones who left you uncovered when you needed them most. And in those moments, it's easy to believe that maybe God didn't show up for you. But let me tell you something, God saw it all. He saw the conversations you weren't in. He saw the betrayal you didn't deserve. He saw the moments you stayed quiet when you could have clapped back. And he didn't ignore your pain. He recorded it. He took note of every tear, every sleepless night, every time you said, God, I'm trying to do the right thing, but this right thing is breaking me. See, we often think when God loves us, he'll protect us from pain. But what I've learned is that sometimes his protection looks like letting the pain reveal the truth. Because if he didn't allow that betrayal, you'd still be trying to build with people who are secretly breaking you. If he didn't allow that heartbreak, you'd still be trying to force love where loyalty couldn't live. Sometimes his mercy is hidden in the pain you didn't want to feel. And I know you didn't ask for that lesson. You didn't pray for that betrayal. You didn't fast for that heartbreak. You were just trying to love right, serve right, be right. But can I tell you something? God doesn't waste pain. When he allows it, he plans to use it. That wound wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to define you. It was meant to strip away who you pretended to be so the real you, the anointed you, the healed you, the wiser you could finally stand up. Sometimes the people who hurt you were just the chisels in God's hand, shaping the stone he called you to be. And I know that doesn't make it easier, but it does make it holy, because God never lets a wound go unused. He will take what was meant to break you and make it build you. You may have cried your way through that season, but when you come out of it, you'll realize that pain didn't kill me, it crowned me. You ever notice that the oil that anoints has to be crushed first? The olive doesn't release oil until it's pressed. And maybe that's what's happening in your life. God is pressing something out of you. He's using pain to release power. You thought they hurt you, but God said, no, I used them to pull the greatness out of you. Because as long as you were comfortable, you couldn't see what he placed inside you. As long as you were surrounded by validation, you couldn't hear his voice, so he let it fall apart, not to punish you, but to position you. And if you could only see what he's building with the broken pieces, you'd thank him for what fell apart. Because what he's constructing now is stronger, purer, more divine than what you had before. That's why the enemy wanted to break you, because he saw what was about to be born out of your pain. But God said, I'll take the hit and still bring healing. Let's be real, sometimes you'll sit in silence and think, God, if you're going to make this right, then why does it still hurt so much? Because healing is not the absence of pain, it's the transformation of it. God doesn't just take the pain away, he turns it into purpose. And while you're sitting there thinking you're falling apart, he's actually doing his deepest work. The kind of work that can't happen in comfort, the kind of work that requires the breaking. You might not see it now, but one day you'll look back at the situation that nearly destroyed you and say, that was the moment I found out who I really am. Because pain introduces you to your power, it makes you face yourself, it makes you dig deep into the God inside you. That betrayal pushed you closer to your destiny. That heartbreak brought you to your knees, but it also brought you back to his presence. There's something sacred about the people who survive being mishandled, the ones who could have turned bitter but chose better, the ones who were crushed but still carried oil. You may not have chosen this story, but God trusted you with it. He trusted that you'd take what was meant to destroy you and let it draw you deeper into him. So if you're sitting in that space right now confused, hurt, wondering why, just know this. God is not ignoring your pain. He's collecting it. He's weaving it into a plan that's going to make sense when you step into your next season. You're going to see why it had to happen that way. You're going to understand why he didn't let you go back, why he closed that door, why he didn't let their words stick. You see, sometimes God will let them hurt you just enough to teach you how to heal differently. Because he's preparing you to carry something heavier, something holy. And you can't carry that with the same heart that once craved validation from people who didn't value you. The breaking was necessary, the betrayal was necessary, the silence was necessary, because through all of it, God was refining you. You're not who you used to be, you're stronger now, you're wiser now, you see clearer now, and maybe that's what God was after all along, not your comfort, but your character. So don't curse the pain that pushed you into purpose. Don't resent the people who revealed themselves. Thank God for showing you what needed to be seen. Thank him for exposing what couldn't go with you into the next season. Thank him for letting the fake fall away so the real could rise. Because when it's all said and done, God doesn't ignore your pain. He uses it to refine you, to restore you, and to reveal himself through you. That's how he turns what hurt you into what heals you. ChatGPT said, "You ever been in a season where you wanted to defend yourself so badly? Where you wanted to pick up your phone and set the record straight? Where you wanted to tell your side, make them see, make them understand what really happened? And every time you tried, God whispered, 'Be still.' That's one of the hardest commands he gives, because silence doesn't feel like strength when you're being misunderstood. Stillness doesn't feel powerful when lies are spreading, but I've learned something about God. He doesn't need your help to handle what's hurting you. There are battles you are not called to fight. There are wars that are beneath your anointing, and sometimes the enemy will bait you with offense just to make you lose your peace. Because if he can pull you into a fight that's not yours, he can distract you from the purpose that is. You don't have to clap back, you just have to step back and let God do what only he can do. See, when people come against you, it's not always personal. Sometimes it's spiritual. They're reacting to the light in you that confronts the darkness in them. They may not even understand why they can't stand you, why they try to tear you down, why they twist what you say. But God does, and when he says, "I'll fight for you," he means it. He's not just talking about punishing your enemies. He's talking about protecting your peace. And I get it, waiting for God to handle it can feel like watching injustice win. It can look like silence is weakness. It can look like people are getting away with how they treated you. But I need you to understand this. Nobody gets away with hurting a child of God. Nobody. God's justice doesn't always show up on your timeline, but it always shows up right on time. He doesn't move out of emotion, he moves out of wisdom. He's not interested in temporary revenge, he's working toward eternal redemption. Sometimes God will delay his response so he can develop your restraint. Because if he dealt with them the way you wanted him to, you'd never learn how to stand still and trust. You'd never learn how to hold your peace when chaos surrounds you. You'd never learn that silence can be sacred. So instead of letting you fight back, he says, "Let me handle it." You see, when God handles your battle, he doesn't just deal with the people who hurt you. He deals with the roots that made you vulnerable to that hurt in the first place. He's not just fixing what they did, he's fixing what it revealed. That's why sometimes before he fights for you, he fights in you. He starts by pulling out the bitterness, he starts by breaking the need to be validated. He starts by showing you that peace is more powerful than proving a point. And while you're sitting there wondering why he's not striking back, he's saying, "Because I'm doing surgery, not slaughter. I'm healing, not harming. I'm preparing you for a level where you won't have to respond to everything that tries to attack you." Can we be honest? Some of us have lost our peace trying to protect our reputation. We've lost our rest trying to explain our intentions. But you don't have to chase what God will confirm. When he decides to vindicate you, he'll do it so clearly that even your enemies will have to say, "Surely the Lord was with them." That's how he works, quietly, strategically, completely. It's not your job to make people see your value. It's God's job to reveal it. It's not your role to make them regret what they did. It's his role to remind them who you belong to. And when he does it, it won't be through gossip or drama. It'll be through elevation. It'll be through favor. It'll be through opportunities that prove his hand is still on your life. That's why I've learned to stop rehearsing revenge. Every time you replay what they did, you reinvite the pain. Every time you strategize payback, you delay peace. Let God do it, because when he handles it, he doesn't just settle the score, he writes a new chapter. There's a story in the Bible about a man named Joseph. His own brothers threw him into a pit, sold him into slavery, and lied to their father about it. For years he was mistreated, misunderstood, and forgotten. But when God was ready, he brought Joseph from the pit to the palace. And when those same brothers came begging for food, Joseph didn't have to say, "See, I told you so." His life said it for him. His position said it for him. His peace said it for him. That's what it looks like when God fights for you. You don't have to prove anything. Your progress will do it for you. Your peace will speak louder than their lies. And when they see how God still blessed you, they'll realize they didn't hurt you, they helped you. Because God used their betrayal to push you closer to your destiny, there's something holy about letting God handle what hurts you. It requires trust, and trust is not built in comfort. It's built in conflict. It's built when you say, "Lord, I don't understand this, but I believe you're still working," and he is. Even when it looks like they're winning, he's working. Even when it feels unfair, he's working. Because God doesn't lose battles, he just fights them differently. You may think you need to fight with your words, but God fights with truth. You may think you need to defend your name, but God defends your purpose. And when he does it, it's not partial, it's perfect. He won't just silence your enemies, he'll prepare a table right in front of them. Not to humiliate them, but to show them that grace wins. So don't let offense make you forfeit your blessing. Don't let anger make you miss your assignment. Stay still, stay grounded, let the storm pass. Because while you're waiting, God is building evidence. He's aligning the right eyes to see your integrity. He's setting the stage for your vindication. And when it happens, when the moment comes and he finally shows you what he was doing all along, you'll realize it was worth it. Every tear, every betrayal, every misunderstanding, it was all preparing you for a season where you no longer have to fight small battles. Because you've learned that when God handles it, he doesn't just win for you, he wins through you. That's how you know it's divine. ChatGPT said, sometimes the pain God allows in private becomes the stage he uses to elevate you in public. It doesn't look like it while you're in it, when you're crying behind closed doors, when you're trying to keep your head up while everything inside you feels like it's falling apart. You're sitting there wondering why God would let this happen, why he'd let people treat you that way, why he'd let your name be dragged when all you tried to do was love, serve, and show up. But what you don't realize is that elevation never happens without exposure. Before God takes you higher, he has to show you who can't go with you. The hardest part of destiny is realizing that not everyone who started with you is meant to stay with you. Some people were only assigned to your season, not your calling. And when the season changes, God will make sure the separation happens. It might come through disappointment. It might come through betrayal. It might come through silence. But however it comes, it's his way of clearing the path for what's next. You thought they walked away because you weren't enough. But really, God was saying, you've outgrown this circle. You've outgrown their understanding of you. There are some people who can't celebrate your healing because they were connected to your hurt. They don't know how to handle the version of you that's whole. They loved you when you were broken, when you were dependent, when you needed them. But when you started standing on your own, they started pulling away. Don't take it personal, take it as confirmation, because when God elevates you, he also isolates you. He takes you through seasons where you feel unseen, but you're really being prepared. Joseph had dreams of greatness, but before the crown ever touched his head, he had to go through the pit and the prison. God used every betrayal, every false accusation, every lonely night to build the man who could handle the weight of leadership. And that's what he's doing with you. The pain wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You can't rule from a place of bitterness, so God let you experience heartbreak to teach you humility. You can't carry influence with insecurity, So he let you sit in silence until you learned that your identity is in him, not in their approval. You see, when God elevates you, he doesn't just change your position. He changes your posture. He shifts the way you see yourself, the way you respond, the way you love. Because if he elevated you while you were still trying to prove your worth, you'd make the blessing about validation instead of purpose. So he hides you first. He lets people overlook you. He lets them count you out. He lets them forget your name. And in that hidden season, he builds your character in silence so that when he brings you out, you can handle being seen. Elevation is never random. It's always the result of refinement. You prayed for the platform, but God had to test your integrity in private before he gave it to you in public. He wanted to see if you could still worship when nobody was watching, if you could still forgive when nobody said sorry, if you could still love when you weren't being loved back. Because those are the lessons that sustain you when the spotlight comes. And can I tell you something? The same people who tried to bury you will have to witness your bloom, not because you'll flaunt it, but because God will make your elevation undeniable. When he decides to restore you, he doesn't do it quietly. He lets the ones who mocked you see that their words didn't stop his plan. He lets the ones who doubted you realize they underestimated the wrong one, but even then, your heart will be too healed to gloat. Because by the time he elevates you, you'll understand. It was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving God right. That's what makes divine elevation so powerful. It's not about revenge, it's about revelation. It's about showing the world that his hand was on your life, even when it looked like everything was falling apart. You went through the fire, and you came out without the smell of smoke. You were overlooked, but not forgotten. You were broken, but still chosen, and now God is using the very thing that hurt you as a platform to heal others. There's something sacred about the way God restores. He doesn't just give you back what you lost, he multiplies it. He redeems the years. He takes what was meant to shame you and turns it into your testimony. That's why you had to go through it publicly. That's why you couldn't hide the pain, because now your story carries power. When you speak, people don't just hear words, they hear deliverance. They see victory, they see grace, and when you finally step into the space God's been preparing for you, you'll realize it wasn't just about getting there, it was about becoming ready to stay there. Because success without healing is just another setup for heartbreak, God didn't want to elevate the wounded you, he wanted to elevate the whole you. He wanted to make sure your identity wasn't tied to who left, but to who called you. So if you're still waiting on that moment of elevation, don't despise the season you're in. Every closed door is making room for the one that will open in front of the right people. Every time you are overlooked, God was writing your name on the hearts of those who will celebrate you in your next season. Every time they whispered your downfall, heaven was planning your unveiling. You may have felt hidden, but you were never forgotten. God was building your strength in silence, because what he's about to do will be too heavy for the version of you that depended on validation. He had to strip away everything that made you question your worth so that when the spotlight hits, you'll know. You're not shining because they finally saw you. You're shining because he already did. And when that moment comes, when the very people who once dismissed you see the fullness of what God has done in your life, you won't need to say a word. Your peace will speak for you. Your presence will preach louder than your pain ever did. You'll walk into rooms you once cried about and realize this was worth every tear. Because the same God who watched you suffer in silence is the same God who will reward you openly. He will make sure your private obedience becomes your public elevation. Forgiveness, that word alone, can make your chest tighten. Because when you've been hurt deeply, forgiveness doesn't feel fair. It feels like letting them off the hook. It feels like saying what they did was okay when it wasn't. It feels like surrendering your power after they already took so much from you. But what if I told you forgiveness isn't about freeing them, it's about freeing you? It's not about excusing what happened, it's about refusing to carry the poison of it any longer. There's a reason forgiveness is one of the last lessons God teaches you after you've been hurt, because it's the hardest. It asks you to release something you never got closure for. It asks you to bless people who never apologized. It asks you to turn pain into peace when you're still bleeding from the wound, and yet that's exactly where the healing starts. Because forgiveness is not a feeling, it's a decision. It's a declaration that says, you don't get to live in my spirit rent-free anymore. Sometimes we think holding on to anger protects us. We think that if we stay mad, we're staying strong, but really, unforgiveness is just a chain dressed up like armor. It looks like strength, but it's just weight. It holds you hostage in a moment that God already left behind. Every time you replay what happened, every time you imagine what you should have said, you're keeping yourself tied to a version of you that no longer exists. And God is saying, I'm trying to bring you into your future, but you keep dragging the past with you. Let me tell you something. God doesn't ask you to forgive because he wants to minimize your pain. He asks you to forgive because he knows it's the only way to detox your soul. Unforgiveness will contaminate everything connected to you. You'll start seeing every new person through the lens of who hurt you. You'll start rejecting love because you're afraid of betrayal. You'll start mistaking isolation for peace when it's really just fear dressed up as control. Forgiveness doesn't mean you trust them again. It just means you're done letting their actions dictate your emotions. I know that's hard. Some of you are saying, but they don't deserve my forgiveness. And maybe they don't. But you deserve your freedom. You deserve to wake up and not feel the sting of their name. You deserve to walk in joy without their shadow following you. Forgiveness isn't saying it's fine. It's saying it happened, but it doesn't have to hold me anymore. It's reclaiming the part of your heart they tried to break. And sometimes forgiveness is not instant. Sometimes you have to forgive in layers. You forgive the act first. Then you forgive the silence that followed. Then you forgive the apology that never came. Then you forgive yourself for staying too long, for ignoring the signs, for giving too much. God walks you through it gently, one release at a time, because he knows the weight you've been carrying, and he's trying to set you free without breaking you in the process. You see, forgiveness is sacred because it mirrors the heart of God. He doesn't forgive because we deserve it. He forgives because it's his nature. And when you forgive, you start looking a little more like him. You start carrying peace like armor. You start walking in grace that confuses the people who thought they destroyed you. Forgiveness is strength disguised as surrender. It's saying, I refuse to let this wound define me. There are some blessings that won't reach you until you forgive. Not because God is withholding them, but because your hands are too full holding onto what hurt you. Sometimes the delay isn't in God. It's in the grip. He's saying, I've got something new for you, but you have to release what's old. You can't receive healing and hold on to resentment at the same time. Something has to give, and here's the truth. Forgiveness doesn't erase memory. You may never forget what happened, but you'll reach a place where it stops owning you. You'll remember it and not feel anger, not feel bitterness, just peace. That's when you know God has touched the wound. That's when you know you've healed, because forgiveness doesn't mean amnesia. It means authority. It means you've taken back control of your story. What used to trigger you now testifies for you. There's power in forgiving silently. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to call them up and make it official. Some forgiveness happens between you and God, in the quiet of your spirit. You can whisper, I release them, and heaven will hear it louder than any confrontation ever could. Because forgiveness isn't about reconciliation, it's about restoration. Sometimes the relationship doesn't come back together, and that's okay. Forgiveness doesn't always mean access. It just means you've stopped carrying the offense, and when you truly forgive, you'll start to notice something shift inside you. The air feels lighter, the prayers feel clearer, the peace feels deeper, because forgiveness breaks the cycle. It stops the enemy from using that pain as a doorway. It protects your anointing from contamination. You'll realize that holding a grudge was costing you too much energy. Energy that could have been spent growing, loving, and becoming. It's amazing how much clarity comes after forgiveness. You start to see that maybe what they did wasn't about you. It was about their own brokenness. Maybe they hurt you because they were hurting. Maybe they lied because they were lost. And no, that doesn't excuse it, but it helps you understand that pain is a chain. It keeps passing itself down until someone decides to break it. Forgiveness is you being that chain breaker. You saying, this ends with me. I'm not carrying this anger into my next generation. You see, forgiveness doesn't make you weak. It makes you dangerous. Because now the enemy can't use your pain against you anymore. He can't whisper the names of your past and make you crumble. He can't bring up that betrayal and make you bitter. You've turned your pain into power, and there's nothing more unstoppable than a healed heart. Some of you have been praying for peace, and God is saying it's waiting on your release. You've been asking for new doors to open, and God's been whispering, let go of what's behind you. Because sometimes forgiveness is the final act of faith. It's trusting that God saw it all and He will handle the justice part. You just need to handle the healing part, and when you do, when you truly let go, you'll feel something shift in your spirit. The tears won't taste bitter anymore. The memories won't sting the same. You'll find yourself praying for them, not because they deserve it, but because you're free enough to. That's when you know forgiveness has done its work. That's when you know God has turned the wound into wisdom. Forgiveness is not weakness, it's victory. It's you walking out of the prison they built for you without looking back. It's you choosing peace over pain, growth over grudges, destiny over damage. That's how God turns your pain into freedom.